What's up, everyone, and welcome to the weekly Q&A. Real quick before questions, we have to send a shout out and a thank you to Alexander Mesler, who joined our Patreon at the Jedi Master level, which is insanely generous, so thank you so much, Alexander.
Also, I wanted to mention that Clashing Sabers is doing their annual fundraiser to help put Star Wars books in classrooms for kids and teachers, so there will be a link for that in the description to check it out. For our first question, MechLoad asks how we feel about Star Wars' tendency to resurrect characters. Does it lessen stakes or help write better stories? I think it depends on the character. I feel like most of the characters that it happens to, well, I don't know about most, but for Boba Fett, it happened in Legends, so for it to happen in canon, it's not that far of a stretch.
Yeah, it definitely felt inevitable.
Yeah.
It felt like it was just a matter of time, and so seeing him in the second season of Mandalorian, we were like, all right, there we go. Like, yeah, let's do this. It was still great to see it actually happening on screen. It's like, I've read about it, I've seen it in art and stuff, but to watch it happen was super cool.
Yeah. And I mean, Palpatine came back. Not exactly how he did in Legends, but still he came back.
Pretty close. And yeah, but I mean, that is the thing. I think Palpatine was the first one. Again, in Legends, when I heard about that in Dark Empire, I was like, really? And I wasn't even that old. I was probably like 10. And I was just like, I didn't like that. And one of the reasons why was because I felt like it negated Darth Vader's sacrifice and what he did. I don't really feel that way anymore. Because really, like, when Darth Vader was saving Luke, that was his goal. He wasn't like, I'm going to end the Sith. Like, no, he just wanted to save Luke. So that's really the heart of his sacrifice. But I just don't like the habit of going back to the same well over and over.
Yeah.
That's kind of my thing.
This came up in our recent live stream for the first Book of Boba Fett episode about Mace Windu. And a lot of people like to bring up, is he going to come back? But, I mean, they might find a way to do it for the story and do it well, but I just don't see how they can do that and have it make sense.
Yeah, I mean, he is a character worth bringing up because of Boba Fett. They obviously have a history together, and one of the first scenes in the Book of Boba Fett was flashing back to Jango's death. So I'm not saying that it's a completely absurd thing to hope for or even think is going to happen, especially because, like, when you compare him to the death of Maul, for example, or Palpatine or other people that came back, I'm like, yeah, he lost a hand, he was zapped a bit and thrown out a window. Like, Maul survived far more. That's more my thing, where it starts to feel like death is just meaningless. And it's like, even if you see a body, like, even if you see Snoke with his tongue hanging out, people were like, he's not dead. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, they were kind of right, because he was just a clone and he could have just grown more or something. But
well, the tongue hanging out is the way to tell if someone's really dead. Right. Happened with Jabba. Yeah,
that's Star Wars' other trope, where they're trying to be like, no, for real, they're dead. But yeah, it's always something that whenever I hear about they're resurrecting this character or whatever, I'm like, okay. But then in the case of Maul, I think it worked out very well. I'm glad they did it. It's just kind of a coin flip. It depends on who's telling the story. I wasn't a fan of what they did with Palpatine in The Rise of Skywalker. I feel like, in my opinion, it wasn't worth bringing him back, and we should have just done something new. But, you know, it's all down to the storyteller. If someone has a good idea and a good reason to do it, then, you know what, go for it. And I'll decide after the fact whether or not I like it.
Ethan Starnes wants to know if there's a chance Thrawn could appear in the Book of Boba Fett.
There's a chance, for sure, because of the fact that this is, I still don't know what to call the Favreau-verse, but...
I like Favreau-verse.
I guess. But we have The Mandalorian, the Book of Boba Fett, the Ahsoka show. Like, all of these shows are going to be leading into this climactic event that they mentioned just over a year ago. So I certainly won't be surprised if something in this series builds towards that climactic event.
I don't know. It depends on if this is like a first season show or if this is just a one-off show. Because if it's a one-off show, it's probably all going to be centered on Boba Fett and Fennec Shand, and I don't see why they would introduce a character like Thrawn, you know, if they're really trying to just tell his story. But, I mean, we could always get another name drop like we did in Mandalorian.
I think there will be something. I'm not really banking on Thrawn. I think it makes more sense. It would be more impactful to save him for the Ahsoka series, since they have some history. I mean, Ahsoka linked to Ezra, linked to Thrawn. But there's gonna be something, I assume. I agree with you on whether or not it's a one-off or a multi-season show. They haven't called it like a miniseries like the Obi-Wan Kenobi series will be. So I do think we're going to get another season of this. That's just my guess for now. And if that's the case, it might follow the same model as The Mandalorian, and also Star Wars Rebels, Star Wars Resistance, The Clone Wars. A bunch of Star Wars shows for the first season are smaller in scope. And then in the second season, the galaxy gets bigger. They meet more characters. It ties into the larger universe a little more. So Book of Boba Fett might be all on Tatooine. But then season 2, maybe it starts to spread out, connect more with The Mandalorian and stuff like that.
Yeah, it feels more like a story that's going to focus in on the crime syndicates, and Thrawn just feels like such a big character to be involved with the crime syndicates that are on Tatooine, but you never know.
And there's always the potential of an after credits scene, just like we got in The Mandalorian, to say, hey, Book of Boba Fett's coming.
Yeah.
They could do something that's like at the end of Book of Boba Fett Season 1. My guess would be that it would tie into Mandalorian Season 3 since that's coming next. But it could be like, hey, Ahsoka's down the line and look at this shadowy Imperial figure that you can kind of make out that he has blue skin, or maybe he opens his eyes in the dark and you see that they're red, something like that.
Grogu asks if Figrin Dan and Max Rebo have formed the galaxy's first supergroup, or is that Biff an imposter?
It's impossible to say. I do think it's... So Molly found out that they actually do call Max Rebo by name in the descriptive audio.
As they should.
It was in the descriptive audio for the episode.
Mm-hmm.
So that is 100% Max Rebo. Thank goodness. Everyone keeps celebrating.
Yeah. But they say the Biff next to him. So they don't call him by name, but it's like, I mean, how many people are going to know the name Figrin Dan?
Right.
But then how many people
know Max Rebo?
Know Max Rebo's name? I don't know.
I do think more people know Max Rebo for some reason over Figrin. That's got to be an interesting board meeting to be like, and then they write that in the descriptive audio script and they're like, who is that? Who knows this? And they're like, oh, they know. And then they're like, well, who's this Figrin Dan person? And they're like, that's a step too far.
I almost said, oh, people probably know Max Rebo's name because the band is called the Max Rebo Band. But then it's Figrin Dan and the Modal Nodes is his band. So
I want to know what kind of market research goes into like, all right, how many people know Max Rebo versus how many people know Figrin Dan's name? But yeah, maybe that's a sign that that's not Figrin Dan. I still like the idea that it is because they are playing, according to the subtitles, Cantina theme variant. Mm-hmm. I think that's what they call it in the subtitles. So it is Figrin Dan's song. And I refuse to believe that Max Rebo stole it.
Yeah.
It could be a cover.
I say headcanon is yes, that is Figrin Dan until proven otherwise.
Yeah. Because I love the idea of the two greatest musicians in the galaxy collaborating finally. So to me, that's Figrin Dan. Could be Barkwin Dan or another Dan. But
just Dan.
It's just Dan. Dan.
Caleb Diaz wants to know if Force users are more susceptible to their emotions than non-Force users.
I don't think so. I think that for the most part, everyone in the Star Wars galaxy is dealing with the same emotional stuff. It's just more that the stakes are higher if a Force user loses control of their emotions. Yeah.
If they let their emotions get the better of them, then it affects how they connect to the Force, and that's going to affect whatever Jedi activities they may be involved in.
And then they become a Sith Lord.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of like the worst of the worst.
That's worst case scenario. Yeah. That's a Jedi on a real bad day.
Yeah. Whereas like if I let my emotions get the best of me, I pout for a little bit. Like it's not that bad. There's not as much damage that I can do.
Well, we're seeing a little bit of this right now in the High Republic with Elzar Mann. He's having a little bit of a crisis. He hasn't gone full dark side or anything, but he's dealing with some stuff.
That's what I like about the High Republic Jedi, is that he's not the only one. We've also seen Imri, a Padawan, dealing with the dark side and faltering. He straight up attacked Vernestra Rwoh, another Jedi, and they were just like, oh, it's okay. You had a bad day. Like,
because you had a bad day.
Right. So now I'm thinking of Star Wars lyrics for that. So yeah, you had a bad day, and then we're going to work through this. Like, you're not kicked out of the order or anything.
Yeah.
Whereas it seems like a much bigger deal in the prequel era.
Ray LeGrand asks if we could see Greek mythology-style stories set in Star Wars about the Mortis gods or the Bendu.
I really love that idea. Like, we have had some myths and fables style stories that are kind of set in universe, and it's ambiguous as to whether or not they're true. I love the idea of getting a mythology book, maybe anthology series, set in universe of like, these are tales that we tell our Jedi younglings about the Mortis gods, about the Bendu. And then it would be fun for us to be like, oh, what is actually true about this? Because we know these beings exist.
Yeah. I was thinking it would be cool if something like Visions were to get into some Greek mythology, because that would make for some really cool episodes of animated stuff. And also the rumored show
Tales of the Jedi?
Tales of the Jedi. We don't know what that's about yet, but that would be cool if it were like Visions, just a couple of different stories, and some of those could dive into...
Literally could be like tales that the Jedi tell each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that it's like more something along the lines of the old comic series, just because they're like using the same logo. But yeah, we don't know what that is at all, because that came out on like a Lucasfilm gift or something.
That's a heavy rumor, I would say. But Visions, that would be cool to explore something like this.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that's happening, considering it was on Lucasfilm stuff and it just kind of leaked out there, but we don't know what it is yet. Hopefully we find out soon. But yes, Visions would be a great visual place to explore something like Jedi mythology. I think that would be really, really neat.
That's it for our patron questions. If you're a patron and you didn't see your question answered here, just head over to Patreon, where we leave every submitted question a written response. If you're not a patron, you can learn more by following the link in the description. We have tons of other rewards, like audio commentaries for the films and every new Star Wars series premiering on Disney+. We also record video reactions to every new series as we watch them for the first time. We're doing book clubs to discuss every new Star Wars book as they release. We have behind-the-scenes content, comic reactions every Wednesday, and more. All of that is available right now on our Patreon if you're interested.
On to YouTube questions. David Benwald asks if Mace Windu could ever be seen as a Force ghost. So we briefly mentioned him earlier.
Yeah, it depends on if he's actually dead or not, but I think that he is.
What if he survived the fall, did the training in order to become a Force ghost, and then later died, and then we see him as a Force ghost?
It's possible.
They would have to go through all the explanation of all that, or else people would be like, he didn't do the training.
Well, I mean, I've already kind of said that, because in The Rise of Skywalker, we hear all the voices of all the Jedi. Not all of them, but voices of Jedi past. And to me, I'm like, okay, that's supposed to only happen if you've done the training. But I think that the door has already been opened for something like that, because... you know, Anakin didn't go through the training as far as we know. He's a Force ghost as well. So I think that maybe something that Qui-Gon, Yoda, and Obi-Wan did, maybe that just opened the Force a little more for any lightsider to make their way into Force heaven, whatever you want to call that.
Yeah. I feel like the idea of having to do training in order to be able to show up as a Force ghost, it's very limiting, and I don't think they are going to stick to that, because
I think they're going to find...
That narrows down a lot of people.
Yeah, well, Dave Filoni has even suggested that George Lucas kind of had it all reasoned out, where when he introduced the idea of the training in Revenge of the Sith, everyone was like, but Anakin... like, Anakin obviously didn't go through the training.
Yeah.
So Filoni has said that Lucas knew that and had his reasons. So I think that there's potential for basically any Lightsider to become a Force ghost eventually, somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm sure they could find a way to explain that.
If somehow Palpatine can return,
Somehow Mace Windu can be a Force ghost.
Exactly. And, they might even go into this in the Obi-Wan show.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I think that'll be more focused on Obi-Wan's training, but yeah, maybe he'll be talking to Mace Windu as well. Who knows?
Maybe he'll be doing the training and be like, I don't really have to do this. Like, Yoda gave me homework.
Boo.
Matthew Kelly wants to know if the Star Wars galaxy celebrated anything like New Year's.
Well, I think the closest thing to give an in-universe answer is probably Empire Day. That seems like it's also basically, July 4th for Americans, an Independence Day kind of thing, except the opposite for the Empire. But it's just like a big fascist celebration of the day we took over. But that was celebrated across the galaxy. For New Year's, it's like every planet has a different
That's true.
cycle.
Yeah. We don't know how time works in the Star Wars universe and how calendars work and all that stuff, so I don't know. Maybe they just lump that in with Life Day.
Yeah. But I did want to point out that, and you showed this to me yesterday, there was a New Year's Hoth Lego video.
Oh, yeah.
So they did put a Lego video on the Star Wars Kids YouTube channel, and it's like General Veers attacking Hoth on New Year's Day. So they all have like party hats on and stuff. It's very silly. I absolutely would not consider it canon. But it was a New Year's video, so maybe there is some sort of New Year's celebration for Star Wars.
It's basically the Battle of Hoth. It's got a lot of the same events that happened, but yeah, they just kind of gave it a little New Year's spin.
I watched it, and you did not tell me about the adorable Wampa baby.
Oh, well.
How dare you?
I wanted you to see for yourself.
Well, I saw it for myself, and I love him.
I just had to immediately go and tell Veers Watch that was out.
You ran to Veers Watch before you came to me. That's all right.
Garth McMurray asks if Sophie Thatcher will be playing a new or familiar character in the Book of Boba Fett.
I would say 99% she's going to be a new character.
Yeah.
That's my guess.
So too. It's fun to speculate because there are one or two characters out there that we kind of talked about on the live stream that she could be, but yeah, 9 times out of 10, if you see a new character, it's probably going to be a brand new character, unless you recognize them right off the bat. Yeah.
I mean, I think people just get excited with who they want to see in these series, but I saw someone suggest it could be Omega, and I was like, she should be the same age as Boba Fett, A. B, that looks nothing like her. It's just, I think people can project what they hope to see onto like anything.
I feel like some people are like, woman must be other woman character.
Can be.
Fetlore wants to know if it's confirmed that Moff Gideon won the Darksaber from Bo-Katan.
I would say it's not confirmed. I also don't think he won it from her. Like, Moff Gideon knows the rules. He knows that for whatever reason now Bo-Katan can't just take the Darksaber from Din.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just messing with her, being like, haha, he won it in combat, you can't take it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think he won it in combat. I think it was given to him as like a trophy or something.
Yeah, it'll be interesting if we get to see how exactly he got it. But, I mean, he fought with it and he was okay, but he wasn't like an impressive swordsman or anything like that. So
I agree. I mean, maybe he did win it in combat, but the way I'm reading those scenes right now is that he was just messing with Bo-Katan. It's like, just because he knows the rules doesn't mean he's going to put himself in harm's way just to get that sword. But maybe he did. Maybe I'm not giving him enough credit. That's all the time we have for questions today. If you want to leave a question for next week's video, just put it in the comments below or sign up for Patreon to join our weekly Q&A discussion and get a guaranteed answer. Yeah, that's right. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel.
Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok.
And as always, thanks for watching, and I hope you had a happy new year.